I want to talk today about Nebraska State Senator Megan Hunt, who introduced a bill amendment to block all children from being able to go to church or Bible camps.
Okay, right-wingers are completely unhinged, and this video is like a perfect demonstration of that.
Now, the bill that she was amending is a Republican bill to try to prevent children from being exposed to indecency at drag events, okay? So, Republicans are trying to protect kids from, you know, being exposed to sexually explicit imagery and just absolute evil. So she says she's making this equivalency, right, between drag events and Bible events. And so I thought about it, and in some sense, I actually agree. Because she said this was a device to make a point, meaning her amendment. Well, in one sense, I agree with the equivalency. That is, I agree with her thesis that what drag queen events are essentially a religious event. Not a Christian event, but certainly a religious one. And I think it's a state-respected religion at this point. So, modern leftism has become, a sort of satanic religion. They have the defilement of children as a religious act, and she is essentially claiming so with this movement.
So in this video, you have this right-winger that's just like completely stumbling over her words and like over-analyzing what really is just a bit. And the bit is a state representative saying, oh, if you want to ban people from drag shows, well, what if we ban people from church? How would you feel about that? And she tries to like bring in this deeper analysis and says, oh yeah, maybe drag is a religion, which would kind of reveal then the fact that she's against religious freedom. But we always know that when these evangelicals talk about religious freedom, they're really just talking about their right to discriminate against people. But then she also goes on to talk about like Hollywood and the media and how it's all just there to indoctrinate children. But like fundamentally what we need to understand about that is at the end of the day, it's part of a larger, deeply anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that literally was very popular in 1930s Germany. Quite literally, these people think that there's some sort of secret organization of like wealthy Jewish people that's like trying to turn people gay and trans. It's all part of their like great replacement conspiracy theory that they keep pushing. And even if this particular person doesn't necessarily believe all of the components of that, she is very actively spreading that message. And then on top of that, you have lines that she says like this.
By the way, Megan Hunt is an openly bisexual member of the Nebraska State Legislature. But anyway,
where we really need to ask the question, why is it relevant that she's openly bisexual? Like, what relevance does that have to literally any of this? As though her being bisexual in any way invalidates her larger critique against the right wing. Like, that is basically her just saying to her audience, hey, this lady's bisexual, so don't worry, you don't need to listen to her, but don't worry, this isn't about discrimination or anything like that. And that really is like just a perfect example of these right-wingers telling on themselves, because they always do. And the people that are like so anti-trans and anti-drag tend to be the most unhinged because they always try to invent these like grand conspiracy theories about how everybody's trying to indoctrinate children, when the harsh reality is it is these people who fundamentally believe that children are property, that want to make sure that children are never exposed to anything that is even slightly different than their very rigid and narrow view about what humans should be. I mean, literally at one point in this video, she tries to talk about how evil and satanic Hollywood is, which is just on its face ridiculous. There are a lot of different people in Hollywood that make a lot of different content, and many of them are actually very transphobic, actually. In fact, if you look at portrayals of trans people, you see that the media is not terribly friendly to trans people for the most part. And now, why am I talking about trans people and drag in the same breath? The reason for that is actually quite simple. Any ban on drag in public is really, in practice, to some degree, a ban on trans people being in public, because these right-wingers think the very existence of trans people is inherently sexual. They think that drag is inherently sexual, and they want to paint trans people as being inherently sexually deviant. And by passing these drag bans, what they're effectively doing is creating an invitation for people to randomly and arbitrarily call the police on trans people just for being in public, and to make it incredibly easy for police officers to arrest trans people just for being trans, and to just throw like felony charges on trans people literally just for existing in the world. And that too really speaks to what's going on in the minds of these right-wingers. I mean, quite literally, they cannot see a drag show or a trans person in public without immediately going into incredibly intimate detail in their own minds about what might be in their pants or what they might do in the bedroom. And that really just kind of shows like how creepy and weird all of these transphobic people are. But the simple fact that she's willing to take this bit from a state representative and turn it into this deeper analysis really just shows that these right-wingers are too bent on taking everything way too seriously and taking it to a level that is just extreme and completely disconnected from reality. Because unless these people really think that Bugs Bunny should be censored for every time he's on drag in the cartoons, it seems pretty clear that the aim of the right is to just make it unacceptable for trans people to be seen in public. And their reasoning for that is a perfect case study in them just completely telling on themselves. Because at the end of the day, what most TERF arguments end up boiling down to is that they think that trans people are too sexy to be in public, which more so than anything else tells on themselves, but also speaks to something about how they feel about women's rights in general. Because the truth of the matter is, there were a lot of very similar conversations happening earlier when women started wearing pants and shorts in public, which reveals that the aim of the right is not only to strip rights away from trans people, but also to completely strip rights away from women across the board. Fundamentally, these people have an incredibly regressive view of how the world should be, and this is something that should be terrifying not only to trans people across the country, but also to cisgender women as well.